amazing. But we'll get it going because ultimately we have a jam-packed 45 minutes ahead of us. And I can't wait to introduce you all to my two guests of honor for our second year, or going on our second year of the Rise Up webinar. So let's get it going. And if you still haven't put your name, where you're from, and what your bucket list item is in the chat, please, there's still plenty of time. So my name is Bailey. If, like I said, if you are new, my face does not look familiar to you, but I hope we become really fast friends. But I'm originally from Pontiac, Illinois, which is where I am zooming in from today. So my background looks a little bit different than what it looks like usually when I'm hosting these things. And I'm the youth advisor for the Ocean Project. But my bucket list is to hike the Continental Divide, the entire length from Canada to all the way down south. So I don't think I'll ever do it, but you know, that's why I'm putting it out there, so that maybe I will one day eventually do it. But I am joined by two, like I said, really amazing ocean heroes. I have one of their bucket list items, but we get to ask Dr. James his bucket list item here live. But I can't wait to introduce you all to Andrea Quintero and Dr. James Ketchum. So a little bit about them both, and then I will try my hand at pronouncing Andrea's bucket list location. I've been practicing, so fingers crossed I do it correctly. But first is Dr. James Ketchum. Dr. Ketchum is the Director of Marine Conservation, lead scientist, and co-founder of Pelagijos Cancunha. He's going to correct me.
Yes, got it.
Yes, yay, beautiful. He also serves as the president of the board of directors of that same organization and of Mi'kmaq. James has studied sharks and migratory pelagic species since 1998 and holds a PhD in ecology from UC Davis. He carried out pioneering work on the movement patterns and habitat use of hammerhead sharks in the Galapagos Islands and participated in the first telemetric study of sharks in Cocos Islands, Malpelo, Galapagos, and Revillagigedo Archipelago, during which he co-founded Mi'kmaq in 2006, an international network of researchers in the Eastern Tropical Pacific. And joining Dr. Ketchum is Andrea Quintero, someone I am so privileged and lucky to call a friend. Andrea is a member of the World Ocean Day Youth Advisory Council and a marine biology student at the Autonomous University of Baja California Sur in Mexico. Her passion for ocean conservation led her to get certified as a naturalist guide and has been working while at university as a guide for the whale shark tours, as well as tours to the islands of the Gulf of California. She's currently working on her undergraduate thesis with Centro para la Biodiversidad Marina y la Conservación, which is an organization dedicated to generate scientific knowledge and facilitate its integration into the process of natural resource management and conservation of vital marine ecosystems, as well as species of commercial importance. And so I've already tried and probably botched the name, but Andrea would love on her bucket list to dive in the Revillagigedo Archipelago. And she can correct that if that's wrong. And Dr. James, what is on your
here? But
what? Go ahead. What's it called?
Revilla.
Yeah, that I said that. Yeah. And Dr. James, what's on your bucket list?
I think there are many places, but I think Antarctica. I've never been, so we'll love to go there someday. So that's in my bucket list. Top of the list.
Same. And you got a couple of explorers here watching well who are also looking to go to Antarctica. So you have a crew here already with you. But anyways, I will turn it over to Andrea to get us started.
Right.
I just have the share screening disabled. It's not working. Oh, great. I don't know if you can see my screen. Oh, no, I think this is not the screen that I want to share. No. Can you see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Yeah, great. a minute. Let me get this Zoom thing. Okay, great. So hi everyone, my name is Andrea Quintero. As Bailey said, I am a World Ocean Day Youth Advisory Council member, and I'm studying marine biology, and I'm a naturalist guide. And based on my experience as a naturalist guide over the past 2 years, I'd like to tell you why I think that ecotourism is a sign of hope for ocean conservation in Mexico and the world. Just a minute. Great. Sorry, it's just I'm seeing the screen of Zoom and I cannot see my presentation. But yeah, so first of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about Mexico. But when people think about Mexico, they're usually thinking, I mean, the first things that come to mind are the most popular spots in Mexico, which are Mexico City, Cabo, or places in the Yucatan Peninsula, such as Cancun, or Playa del Carmen, or Tulum. And these places are popular because of two reasons. They are usually considered very popular. One, because they are the most advertised places. And I do think that there's a culture nowadays where people, you know, in social media and with this very digital society, where we all want to take pictures, that we want our pictures to have the most likes and shares. And I mean, if we see friends of ours in the sandy white beaches of Cancun, or if we see people in Cabo, I don't know, taking a picture in the arch, we want those things as well. And that's also one of the reasons why tourism sometimes is focused on very specific spots in many countries. But I do believe that there's more in every single country than their most popular touristic places. In the case of Mexico, it's very important for every one of us to just get familiarized with it. Mexico is a very big country. The surface area of Mexico is enormous, and it has a wide variety of ecosystems, and it definitely has a wide variety of cultures as well. So there's a lot to see. And I think that's true for every country. I mean, if you go to Brazil, it's not only about Rio or Sao Paulo. I'm pretty sure there's much more to see than that. So it applies to every single country. And what I think that should be done is that we should distribute the tourism to more places than just the popular places, so that these spots don't get overcrowded, and so that tourism can be managed much better. Now, there are different types of tourism. The most common type that we will encounter will be conventional tourism. Now, when I say conventional tourism, I'm usually like talking about, you know, hotels with resort and spa kind of, you know, tourism with pools. And you can also find, you know, cities where you go clubbing with your friends, or maybe you'll go to a cruise ship. And these are actually like floating hotels. They're so big that you can find pools and tennis courts and water slides, surfing spots, you know, everything can be on these floating giants. And, you know, the thing about conventional tourism is that it is mainly focused on the enjoyment of the tourists. So you go there, you don't to enjoy the area that you're visiting, or to learn about it, or to help the communities that live nearby. You're there simply to have a good time. So you're paying to be at a beautiful hotel suite with ocean view, or to be at the pool having some drinks with your friends or your family, or having delicious food. And there's basically no, I mean, it's not focused on getting yourself educated about the place that you're visiting. On the other hand, ecotourism is defined by the International Ecotourism Society as responsible travel to natural areas that conserves the environment, that sustains the well-being of local people, and involves interpretation and education. I think that, I mean, we all have like the idea that it's all about the environment, but it's also about local people and their well-being. And the most important thing about this definition, I think, is probably education. When you go to a place to get to learn about the place that you're visiting, the animals that are in the area, about the area, you know, and everything regarding the whole experience that you're paying for. Yeah, so ecotourism is very related to this pyramid that is a very famous pyramid, that is a triangle of sustainability, which in order for tourism to be called sustainable, it should include these three aspects, which are environmental integrity, economic vitality, and social equity. Without these three things, very important aspects, you cannot have a sustainable tourism. So conventional tourism, the problem there is that it's not very focused on the environmental integrity or the social equity aspect. It's more of economic vitality and, as I said before, the enjoyment, right, of the people who are paying for this. Now, I have been working as a certified naturalist guide in Baja for 2 years now. And it has been a very rewarding experience. I mean, I have had to get certified because I work in many natural protected areas here in Mexico, in Baja. And I take people to the islands of the Gulf of California. I have taken people to hike there, to learn about the endemic flora and fauna of the islands. And I've also taken people to the sea lion colonies of one of the islands, which is very close to La Paz. And I also got certified to be a whale shark guide. So right now it's whale shark season, so I have been taking some clients to swim with whale sharks, which has been amazing. It's always cool to see a whale shark, and yeah, it's difficult to get to be the guide because you need to get a lot of certifications to swim with these endangered species. And you know, one of the coolest things that I think that I like about ecotourism is probably the experience that the clients get. Clients learn a lot about the area that they're visiting, about the animal that they're interacting with. They learn to respect it and to learn its importance in the place that you're at. And so you're learning. I mean, you're actually, I mean, as a guide, you're teaching these clients, and you're also learning from them, and they're getting this enriching experience that it's not only like pleasure and enjoyment, it's also learning and getting conscious about your own country or other countries, and that can like create a lot of interest for conservation, which I think is very cool. And also, this is a picture of a gray whale that I took when I went this year to see them at the lagoons that are on the Pacific side of Baja. And this is the captain. He's a contact that I have. I think I got him like 2 years ago, and his name is Jose, and he has lived his whole life in this town called Puerto Chale. And he's a fisherman, and when it's gray whale season, he works in ecotourism. So I think ecotourism is also a very good option for fishermen to sometimes just work on ecotourism when there are fishing restrictions, and it's a very stable way of living to work in ecotourism. Compared to sometimes fishing, which can be sometimes a little bit hard because there are not always going to be fish stocks in the places that you expect them to be. So yeah, that's the social aspect of ecotourism, which I find very, very important. And another thing that I want to emphasize was that I am not here like to criticize completely like the conventional type of tourism, because I do think that that type of tourism is necessary, and ecotourism might not be for everyone. So what I do think that should happen is that the government or communities should arrange the way that these kinds of tourism practices are distributed in an area. Like in La Paz, this is the La Paz Bay, and you have in the red circle the city of La Paz. So in the red circle, you have the city of La Paz, where you can find the hotels, where you can stay, where you can go to clubs or restaurants and do the conventional type of tourism that everyone likes. And on the other parts of the whole area, you can find these natural places, or for example, on the bottom left, you can see the whale shark area. A little bit above, you can see all of the beaches, the popular beaches of La Paz, and they are completely, well, not completely, but they're very much protected from buildings and hotels. So I do think that the conventional tourism should be restricted to very specific small areas all around a place. And then that most of the area surrounding those places should be focused maybe on ecotourism, and these areas should be more protected. And that should be done to guarantee the preservation of these amazing spots that would otherwise be destroyed by conventional tourism if we started to build hotels at every single beach in La Paz. And I want to show you guys just a picture of the protected areas in Mexico, which I think are, a lot of them have been improved and have been made bigger thanks to ecotourism. And there are different categories of natural protected areas. I'm not going to go into every single one. But if you guys would like to know the difference, because in every country the categories are different, but if you guys would like to understand what each one means, I got here like the definitions of every single category. I'll put them later so you can take a screenshot from them. But well, yeah, I work in natural protected areas, which are basically, they have to have scenic value, they have to have scientific value, historical. They also need to have sometimes endemic species of flora, natural protected area. And yeah, if you want, you can take a screenshot now of these definitions of the different categories that you can find here in Mexico of protection. And I also encourage you guys to maybe do some research in your own countries, like what kind of protections there are for different areas. And yeah, so I have here a map of Baja California Sur and the kind of areas that you can find here that are protected, such as the Espiritu Santo Island on the north side, which is a national park, and it's also a flora and fauna protection area. And James is going to be talking to us a little bit about how ecotourism is working with sharks in Cabo Pulmo, which is southeast from the Baja California Sur Peninsula. And he's also going to be talking about the whale shark tourism that we do here. Yeah.
Is my turn? Hello?
Yep, you're good to go, James.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Can you hear me? Because my internet is not working very well. Well, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you, Andrea. Nice to meet you, Bailey. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I'll just talk to you about some of my experiences with ecotourism here in La Paz. I used to be a guide, same as Andrea, but many more years ago. I started in '92 as a guide, naturalist guide in La Paz. And back in the old days, I'll just give you like an overview of how things used to be back then, how they have evolved into a different type of tourism right now. And Andrea did a very good job in putting some things in context. It's very important to understand what's tourism, what's ecotourism. And another term that it's important to add is wildlife tourism, which is most of what some of the companies that do work here in La Paz, that's what they do. So anyway, back in '92, early '90s, there was a single, well, actually, I'll take that back. There were 3 companies here in La Paz, and 2 kind of dominated the scene here in terms of tourism, especially one that did most of everything. So I was lucky to work for that company. I can say the name, it's Baja Expeditions. And they had trips everywhere in the Gulf of California, the Pacific side of Baja California. So we did whale shark trips, whale trips, kayaking, diving, including the Revillagigedo archipelago. So many places. So it was like a single company. And in many instances, we were by ourselves in many places. There were nobody else, including here in the Bay of La Paz with the whale sharks. We were basically alone interacting with wildlife. So back then, there was no need really of any management because there were just a single boat interacting and a single group of people. So back then, and I will not recommend doing this anymore, because now you have many more tourists. But back then, we used to ride the whale sharks, and because it was fine, it was normal. A whale shark will come, especially a large one. And I did this with Dr. Jeannie Clark. She was a very famous shark researcher. She was my mentor, actually, back then as an early scientist to be here in Mexico, and she taught me a lot of things. But it was funny because she wrote every time she saw a whale shark, she would write the whale shark, and I did the same thing, and especially large ones. Same thing with the mantas, and it was the place was ours, kind of thing, you know. And gradually, tourism. Talking about La Paz, I kind of center things here, where I have most of my experience. Things evolved into more people, more tourism, more boats. By late '90s, there were a little more companies, a bit more companies here in La Paz that were doing diving, especially in these areas. So by early 2000s, there were many more companies interacting more with all of the wildlife, whale sharks, mantas, all of that, including the gray whales, as Andrea was mentioning. The gray whale is a different story, and it's much older. I will not go into that because I will just use all of my time, but I will concentrate on the sharks. So shark tourism evolved from just this kind of elitist, only Americans, only foreigners, Europeans will come here to La Paz in the '80s, '90s. No Mexicans. The only Mexicans that I remember guiding were very rich guys or kids from Mexico City. Actually, some of them were very important, both economically and politically. And like Azcárraga, Emilio Azcárraga, his son came here back then. And he came every single year to see the amazing things that were here in Baja. So back then we also had the hammerhead sharks. The scalloped hammerhead shark was so abundant in couple of places, in El Bajo, Espiritu Santo, and Las Animas. It was the main driver of wildlife tourism in La Paz. So anybody that would come here to La Paz was going out to see the hammerheads. They were just right here of Espiritu Santo, and you could spend a couple of days diving with the hammerheads. It was almost guaranteed you will see the big school of hammerheads, including a whale shark and including mantas. So El Bajo Espiritu Santo was like going to Disneyland. It was amazing all the way back to late 90s. So by late 90s, early 2000s, all of that was gone, disappeared basically. This incredible place full of wildlife, full of animals, just was gone overnight. And I saw that in my own eyes. I saw that with incredible animals and everything very abundant. And by early 2000s, everything disappeared. There were no hammerheads. In a good day, you would see 5 hammerheads or none. Very seldom, very rarely mantas. Actually, they were also gone. And every now and then a whale shark. By the early 2000s, I was initiating a study on the whale sharks in the Bay of La Paz. So I was lucky to kind of find good numbers of whale sharks. So that was the only species, only megafauna or big animal that you would see here in La Paz almost in a guaranteed way certain times of the year. So going through time in this timeline from the 90s to early 2000s, things change, no more hammerheads, no more mantas, and then everything shifted into the whale sharks. And then by late 2000s, early 2010, something like that, there were more companies starting using the whale sharks, and it got to a point where the whale sharks was the only thing to see in La Paz. And also there were the sea lions in Espiritu Santo, but the whale sharks were attracting at some point more people. So it got saturated I remember by 2010, 2011 maybe, in that time more or less, I remember seeing just 2 whale sharks here in the Bay of La Paz and 35 or 40 boats chasing the whale sharks. So it got very complicated and it was not an ideal scenario. And so back then we helped, and I helped also with my data to manage better this whale shark habitat in the Bay of La Paz. And so many years after, in 2017, maybe Andrea remembers better, the refuge of the whale shark was created. And that was a great thing so kind of going back through all the stages. So the whale sharks were an elitist, a single boat using this, which was amazing. And then it became the only thing. And then it got saturated. It was it was so easy. It was only like 100 pesos, like $5, $5 to go and see a whale shark. So it was out of control. Anybody can see a whale shark. The panga drivers will take people back and forth, and throughout the whole day. So the poor whale sharks were really harassed, and they were not feeding well. I remember seeing whale sharks kind of thin and just chased around all over the place. So it was a mess. By 2013, 2015, it was very bad. And luckily, this refuge was put in place in 2017, as far as I remember. And so things got better. It was difficult for the tour operators to adapt to these new conditions, new rules, a lot of rules. And now it's way better. So the new thing now is that it's more controlled. They need a guide like Andrea and other trained marine biologists. So right now it's an ideal scenario. You have a controlled with guides, trained guides, certified, most of them marine biologists that are providing all of the information, not only safety things, but also very good information in terms of the biology of the whale shark and all that stuff. So it transitioned into a good thing. So it's a good end of the story, as far as I can tell. It's a good end of the story as far the whale shark tourism in La Paz. Let's look at the other side of the coin. The scalloped hammerhead tourism is not a good end of the story because it started off amazing, many hammerheads, as I said before, and it transitioned into nothing. By early 2000s, they were gone. And I remember coming back from doing my doctorate in the States in 2010, 2011. I came back and I saw nothing in El Bajo Espiritu Santo, not even fish. Forget about sharks. I saw very little fish in a place that was full of fish. And so it was heartbreaking for me to see an amazing place become nothing, just a bunch of rocks, empty. So this is a great story also for shifting baselines. I don't know if you've heard of that concept, how things change from one generation to another. The perception of nature changes. So my perception of nature was kind of very good, but if someone younger than me, like new generation, sees a few fish in El Bajo, maybe that's good. That's normal, right? So that's shifting baselines. What's your perception of wildlife or nature, depending on your generation, what your generation sees through their time. So that's what happened to El Bajo Espiritu Santo. In the last few years, we've seen small schools of juvenile hammerheads. So there's some signs of recovery. Maybe for someone younger than me, to say, oh, this is great, I'm seeing 50 young juvenile hammerheads. For me, it's not enough, because I used to see hundreds of large adult hammerheads. So it's always good to look into the perception of things to know what will be time zero, right? How to bring things back to yours. My zero is different from maybe an older generation. Obviously, it was better. My advisor, when I was doing my doctorate, he would see 500 hammerheads at El Bajo Espiritu Santo back in the late 70s and 80s. I never saw that. So that is his zero, his beginning of things, or the good things, it's in a way better position. So it's all relative of what you see during your lifetime. But it's important to, if you want to recover a place, to look to have this idea of shifting baselines. Before my time is over, I just want to mention a few things about Cabo Pulmo. That's another good side of the coin, or good story that we have here in Baja California Sur, because it was a new park that was created in the 90s, in 1995. I remember going there before it was a park. It was still beautiful, but I never saw a shark in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. I never saw a shark in Cabo Pulmo. Now it's thriving with sharks. We've seen 14 species of sharks. Some species are very abundant, like the black tips. We've counted up to 1,000 black tips. Bull sharks are also very abundant. And so it's another good side of the coin, good side of the story, that this place was recovered thank you to the creation of the park. On the other hand, El Bajo Espiritu Santo, the creation of the park, El Bajo it's part of the Espiritu Santo National Park, has not recovered the hammerhead. So it's not always the case that a protected area will recover, because all of the other ingredients are not in place. What are the other ingredients? The participation of the local communities. In Cabo Pulmo, the participation of the local communities was very important. It was critical for the creation and success of Cabo Pulmo. In Espiritu Santo, the participation is not very important. So that may be the reason that because of that, El Bajo has not recovered. And I don't know if my time is up or not. I kind of lost time of track. Should I stop there?
If you have more stories, you're all good. But we do have questions coming in. First of all, thank you both for sharing your expertise and information. I could listen to you both talk and storytell and just share your adventures and your work all day long. But kind of a first question that people had, and you know, James, feel free to jump in, but maybe this is more for Andrea, but people are wanting to know, what are signs of a group, you know, or an organization that are participating in ecotourism? You know, what will they say, we're an ecotourism group, or will you kind of have to look into it, research it? You know, what should people be looking out for?
I answer it, or James? Or
yeah, go ahead. I'll just kind of do something else. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, you can complement the answer if you feel like it. I think that one of the things that you have to look for is mainly that they have that they're actually making an effort to have the permissions to do the activities that they are selling you. So if you're paying to swim with a whale shark, just if they're actually following, the regulations, and they're actually respecting the animal as well as the area that you're visiting. And sometimes it can't be very obvious, but I think that, just trying to figure out whether that company is certified in those activities is very important. Looking into the mission of the whole company also. I mean, for example, I worked in one that I thought was very good, because it's called Red Travel, and they create like this network. It's called Red, which is network in Spanish, and this network of helping other communities. They had a non-governmental organization helping local communities, and they used a lot of the money for those kinds of things. So maybe do some research on the companies that you're gonna be going out with.
Just to add into that, I think there's a good sense nowadays of some of the new companies that I see they're quite interested in abiding to the rules, and also in terms of helping as well the locals. Because ecotourism, as I was talking to Andrea yesterday, everybody uses the word ecotourism, but not necessarily applies. And even if there's a sign that we do ecotourism, not necessarily, because they're probably not helping the local communities. They're not providing education, so they probably don't have a program that does that. And they also is not probably sustainable. So there are all these components that make a real ecotourism not to happen very often. And here in La Paz, the company that Andrea works for, it's very well known for all their activities. So it's one of the few that I could say they do like real ecotourism. The others, I would say they do more wildlife tourism. They take people to see the whale sharks and they inform. Yes, it's true, but they don't have the other components to really classify them as ecotourism activities.
Yeah, that makes sense. That was something that Andrea and I were talking about a couple of days ago, how it's not just about the wildlife, but it's about the people and it's about the community. And so you got a couple other boxes to check off, when you want to be in a group considered to be an ecotourism group. Another question that we had, and this is for both of you, and this is from Emma. What are your thoughts on shark ecotourism that uses chumming? Because it provides economic incentives for conservation and protecting shark species, but also alters their behavior.
You want to take a shot, Andrea, and I'll complement.
That's a great question. Actually, I would like to hear what you think first, because I think it's a very controversial topic, and I don't know, I'd like to hear you first.
Yes, it is controversial. And for me, it all depends on where. For example, in Cabo Pulmo, definitely not, because the sharks are there naturally. So if you're putting bait in the water, you're going to change all that beautiful natural behavior of the sharks. For one thing, the behavior of the sharks is changed drastically with bait in the water. So as soon as you put bait, everything changes completely in seconds. So I wouldn't change Cabo Pulmo for a bit. However, in Cabo San Lucas, for example, or Playa del Carmen, or places in Mexico where they're widely known for baited dives or baited snorkeling, there wouldn't be any sharks, or there wouldn't be any tourism with sharks without the bait. So everything depends on the bait. And same with other places in South Africa, other places I've been, where if you wouldn't have any bait, you would see the sharks, or maybe nothing. So because you're out in blue water, in Cabo San Lucas, for example, and you wouldn't see anything. So it's based on bait, and so there's no other way. That's the way it works. That's the way it began. So that's, you're not really altering anything. And I would say that it has to be in a very controlled way. And I know some of the companies that work in Cabo San Lucas, and they know they do it properly. I hope they still abide to that, because it's really easy to chum like crazy and attract more sharks and bigger sharks and go crazy, and it's a business and you make more money, the more sharks, more money. So it's a fine line, you know, that you're crossing with this because you want to make profit, but at the same time you want to make it in a more controlled way. So I think we're reaching a point in the region that we need to have some sort of regulation for that. I hate the term, but it's for the safety of the animals first and humans, because it's an interaction of both. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one of the things that I want to comment as well was that, for example, I think that in Guadalupe Island, they also use chumming to attract the white sharks. And I mean, I was told that a lot of organizations were kind of against that because it changes the behavior of the shark and everything. But something that is also very important to consider is that by chumming, scientists have also been able to gather a lot of data from the ecology of sharks and the way they behave, and science at the end, information about the sharks in the end does provide more tools to preserve them. And also, yeah, so I mean, without, as James said, without chumming, sometimes in some places you wouldn't have that kind of tourism at all. So I don't know, it's, as I said, it's controversial, but
let me add, thank you for mentioning the white sharks in Guadalupe, because it's different chumming than putting an attractant. So for example, in Guadalupe, it's forbidden to use chumming. So chumming is to cut fish in pieces or put fish in bucket and blood and throw pieces of fish and blood into the water. That is chumming. But an attractant is having a head of a fish hanging from the boat, and that's an attractant. So that's what they do in Guadalupe. And in Guadalupe, definitely, it's also another place. Without it, you wouldn't get the white sharks next to the cages, and because that's the tourism, the attraction to see the white sharks, to see them closely. And also, I mean, I've seen white sharks in Guadalupe, and you could even see the white sharks without the cage diving. But that's also a scenario you don't want to have novice divers in the water with that type of interaction. So as I said at the beginning, it all depends. It all depends. It's species as well. Hammerheads, it's also a similar story as Cabo Pulmo. I will never use chumming or bait in a place with hammerheads. You don't need to, because they're naturally occurring in very specific places. So it all depends on the situation and the species. And with the white sharks, it's definitely not chumming. It is the attractant that needs that to have the white sharks next to the cages or near the cages.
Yeah, I think that there's still, just like complementing everything that's been said so far, I think that there's still a lot to improve in ecotourism. Even the best functioning places where ecotourism is practiced all around the world are not working like in the best way that they could be working. So it's still something that we have to work on. But as tourists, for example, everyone who's watching this, just have to ask yourself what kind of tourism you want to be a part of. And it's important to do research on the impact that that tourism that you're supporting is having on the communities that you're visiting, on the people, local people, on the land, and on the animals.
I want to definitely reiterate what you both said about it being a fine line. I think that's what you'll find in a lot of conservation. It's a fine line between, trying to make things work, but also trying to respect the people, who
Absolutely.
are, relying on tourism and relying on people coming there. And it's a fine line. So Please, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. That was a great one, Emma. But I have a question for both of you. What would you say is a misconception that people either have, and you can answer this about ecotourism, or you can answer this about, marine sanctuaries or these marine protected areas that are being used to kind of repopulate and provide a safe harbor for species. What's a misconception that people have about either of those topics? You can answer one or both.
I kind of lost the question because I got disconnected for a little bit. Can you rephrase the question again?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, any misconceptions that people have either about ecotourism or protecting these species in marine protected areas, protected marine sanctuaries. What are misconceptions that people have?
Okay.
I would say that one misconception is that ecotourism is all about nature and animals. It can also be about people. I mean, there is a lot of ecotourism going on in Mexico where you visit certain cultures that are, you go to learn about communities, and you go interact with these communities, and you try the food that these people are making. And there are so many different ways of doing ecotourism. It does not have to be only about animals or about natural areas. So the point is education, is respecting everyone involved, all parties involved during these activities. So I think that would be probably one misconception. Yeah, so people, hear ecotourism and they think like whale sharks or whales or, animals, but it doesn't really have to be animals all the time.
I would say that one big misconception is that if you're going to any place in the world to interact with animals, that everything is good. That tourism is great. It's a great misconception that people think that because you're going diving, nothing is doing. There's no harm because we're just diving. You're just going to see the animals and whatnot. But when you have big numbers of people visiting places, any type of, including cultural tourism, including the ruins in Mexico, including whatever, just too many people have a strong impact on wildlife, on cultural heritage, on anything, because it could get out of control. And that's the case with whale shark, for example. Whale sharks here in La Paz, that happened for a time. Now it's more controlled. It is the case now a bit with the sea lions. It's been controlled more in Espiritu Santo. I remember being with the sea lions, same thing, just no one else there. It was amazing. And I stopped going to it's called Los Islotes, some years ago. I hate to see so many people. It's just too many. And then that is the thing. No, it is a compromise, and you have to have enough places for the people to go. And now, obviously, we're more humans, and tourism, wildlife tourism, has exploded, and especially shark tourism. It's a new thing. It's a new trend. Everyone wants to go and see sharks anywhere in the world, no matter the cost. If it costs thousands and thousands, it's okay. I'll pay because I want to see the white shark, the tiger shark, blah, 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 whatever. And so that puts a lot of pressure on these places. For example, Reviejero used to have a single boat that visited the islands, 20 years ago. Now we have 15 boats visiting the islands. So it's just too many people. And so what you have to do is more regulations, unfortunately, more rules, how to use the places. And because of that, since about a few years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we've been developing within our organization a code of conduct manuals for people to have better interaction with the place and with the animals in all these places. So we've produced already one for the mantas in collaboration with other NGOs here in La Paz, with the mantas here in La Reina, in Cerralvo, We've made also one for the bull sharks in Cabo Pulmo. We're finishing one for hammerheads in El Bajo. So different ones have, white sharks in Guadalupe as well. So these are important tools for this new generation or new age of just too many tourists, which is fine. I mean, it brings money, it is good, but it puts a lot of pressure on the animals and the places. So it's as I said at the beginning, it's a very big misconception that tourism is a good thing.
Thank you both for those answers. We only have time for one more since we're already over because this conversation is just so full. I can't imagine your two's conversation together. I'm sure you're just talking.
We had a great conversation yesterday, of course.
I'm sure you guys could just go on because you're so passionate about what you do. But please, if you do have a question, this is the final call for questions. But my last question is for both of you. What is one thing that you hope people watching now live or in the future, on YouTube, what is that one takeaway from this conversation you hope sticks with them? Whether they're visiting you, Andrea, in the whale sharks, or, traveling for the first time after COVID, what is that one thing that you hope they take away from this conversation?
After you.
For me, it would be to be open to, you have to be open to learning about the place that you're visiting. Always, whenever you go anywhere, know the place that you're visiting, what you're eating, what you are doing. Everything has an impact on the surrounding places. So education is always so important, and it's so easy to access to it now with internet and everything. So just whenever you go somewhere, don't go just to have a good time, because go also to learn about those places, and you'll have a good time doing that as well. So be a responsible tourist. I think that's the most important thing that I want people to realize, that you have a lot of power as an individual tourist. So be responsible at the things that you're doing when visiting a place. And yeah, that's probably the most important thing that I want people to just kind of have in mind.
Right. I would say get informed of whatever the company you're using. Try to, before you go, get as much information as you can from the company, the providers of the service. If they're doing this only for profit, it's hard to know, but you can kind of sort of tell in the way things are advertised or recommended. There are several companies out there. I would say most of them, they're for profit only, and including companies that do diving, which is not nice, but I have to say it. And but there are others, which are the few, that they're really interested in providing, using some of their money for conservation. So it's important to do some research beforehand. What companies are providing some income to the conservation to support the parks in Mexico. I'll give you an example. The park in Cabo Pulmo, the famous national park in Cabo Pulmo, doesn't have a park ranger. They don't have a park ranger because they don't have any money. It's incredible. It's, as we speak, they don't have a park ranger. So we're trying to help, but why not the local users, the tourism companies help a little bit. I know they do in Cabo Pulmo, and in other places they don't. So it is crucial that the tourists, if you're a tourist, you're a diver, you get very well informed of what the companies are doing or not doing to help for the conservation of these parks. And also, another take-home message from this conversation, which I kind of mentioned, but not enough. It's important to put pressure into the governments of the local countries. Because right now in Mexico, the government is not doing anything. they're not interested. The current government in Mexico is not interested in conservation. But if the pressure comes from the outside, the public opinion from outsiders, it matters a lot to the local government, because they're coming as tourists, and they can write things about your country outside of your country. So I think it's important to say something. If you see something in Mexico, for example, that in terms of conservation, not in terms of politics, but you should say so, even in your local newspaper. Doesn't matter. Public opinion matters a lot. And right now, what we need in Mexico is the help from other countries to put some pressure in our government to get a little bit interested in conservation, because they're not. And that will be my 2 cents.
Just remember, if you all are going to these places, remember what these two, have been talking about this last hour. COVID hopefully will be back to traveling-ish in a couple of months, very, very soon. And, I think this is a really great way to start that off. But if you are visiting, if you love these places, if you traveled there as a kid, now as an adult looking back, like Andrea said, it's time to be responsible if you haven't already. If you love them, give them some love back. So anyways, I can't thank you both enough. This webinar could go on another hour, and I would still not be satisfied by the full length conversation. But anyways, thank you all for being here on this Wednesday. I will, when I send out the recording, I know a couple of you watching have asked about the recording. When I send that out, I'll be sure to put links to where you can check out their work, check out their organizations, and get involved if that's an option. But anyways, thank you all so much for being here. Have a great Wednesday. And message me, email me if you have any more questions for these two amazing ocean leaders. I know I will continue to have questions. So email me and I'll be sure to pass those along to them. But I hope to see you next month. Andrea and Dr. James, thank you so much for being here. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.
Thank you, Bailey.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you soon.